Hello, everyone. How is it going? Happy Friday. As always, I am Catherine Everything, and we are here inside my little school bus studio trying to do some arts and crafts, some kind of low-key, chill co-working vibes. Hey, Quilt and Koala, thank you for the resub. How is it going tonight? Today we are going to be working on some English paper piecing. And if you've been around, I've done some EPP, some English paper piecing before. But I have some pieces that I started as kind of a panini project at the beginning of all of this, and I want to finish them. So I'm going to get them out now. You can see here they have sweet little fairies on them, and I'm going to be making the third block. So I'm trying something new today with my setup. So I've got a green screen out, and I'm really kind of excited to be in the craft, if you will. So pardon me as I geek endlessly about that. So I'm just going to jump right into it. As always, if you have questions about what I do, how I do, why, what, who, what, when, where, feel free to ask. And I'm going to turn down that music just a little bit. There we go. But I'm just going to start kind of as always with just some thread, and I'll get into it. I figured today would just be kind of a nice getting things checked off the to-do list kind of day, a nice crafty Friday. I've been meaning to get back to these for a while. They've been sitting in a drawer, which definitely happens. I know this happens to me, I know this happens to y'all, but you start something and then it's the fixation for a little while, and then sometimes it takes a back seat. So it's nice to, pardon me while I distort reality, the actual fabric of reality. There we go. Well, I distort reality a bit. But, you know, it sits in a drawer for a little bit. That's the fun and the dangerous about the UFOs, the unfinished objects. So today we're going to take a UFO, a WIP, a work in progress, and we're gonna get it finished. So English paper piecing. And I'm sure I'll do this little bit as lots of people drop in, because I know I'm actually, what is this, starting on time? What, me? English paper piecing, if you are new here, or if you just want a refresher, is basically wrapping pieces around a piece of paper and then using those to create crisp geometric edges, and then you can make neat shapes like this. So this block, these are actually all the same block, if you can see that kind of behind me here, where we've got this diamond, this little trapezoid shape, and then these triangles. And it makes this little, it's actually called dogwood, is the name of this pattern. But you can see how just in two different colorways, it looks really different. And I'm making it here in a third colorway. So this status of this piece, where I am with this one is, you can see that I've got a handful of loose geometry, if you will. And then I've got to reline back up and make it into a thing. So I'm going to first step is find your pieces, figure out what they were making, and put it all back together. Because this was in a Ziploc bag in my drawer. So I'm going to take just a minute. Am I missing pieces? That's always fun. Cool. Alright, now I'm sad. They're probably stuck to something that happens. So you can see I have these. These ones are kind of my favorite, these kites here. Let me really zoom in for y'all. You can see that they have a little fairy boy. Actually, this camera's closer, look at that. So you can see the little fairy boy. He's just hanging out, chilling. Oh, cool. The last one's on the floor. There we are. All right, fourth one. So one of the things that's really fun about hand piecing, well, actually just quilting in general, is that you can create just about anything. It is just fabric, it is just geometry, and seeing the ways that people are able to push such, well, it's a simple parameter, but you can push it to do all sorts of really neat things. Like just even in this one, being able to fussy cut and capture these little fairies feels really cool. I'm totally missing pieces, and that's why my brain just left the building. So give me a moment to reboot. ADHD style here. So obviously I had them at one point. Where are we? Last piece? This is what happens when I get set up early, is I have more time to lose things, but that's all right. We'll find them. You can see that I'm starting to put this whole bit together. Got little poppies in the corners. And then I get to bring in these raspberry bits, which I'm not sure if they went this way or this way. So we get to put it all together. You can see how once all the pieces are together. Hey, Mama Jewel, how's it going? I am, losing my collective pieces. And by that, it is simultaneously metaphorical and literal. I hope you are doing well, Mama Jewel. We're doing some English paper piecing, and first, to start off with, I'm just getting all my pieces laid out, realizing how many of them I have lost. But, I found one on the floor already, so maybe I'll have a chance of getting my life together. But hopefully you are doing well. Weird. I thought I had them all. Oh well. We'll sew together the ones we have. So you can see that, this is in one piece. So if I start to kind of hold that up. But anyway, the best way to continue to not lose these will be to sew them together. So anytime we're doing English paper piecing, you know that I'm going to bust out the ladder stitch. So I'm really just jumping into this. I know the stream just started. But as always, if you have any questions, like, again, the who, what, when, where, whys, I'm happy to answer them. Sometimes I know just going right into it gets it all going for us. So I hope you are having a very happy Friday, everyone. I know I am. And if you've noticed, there's something different about today's stream. Yes, we were playing with I was adjusting it earlier, like the true professional that I am. There's a green screen now. My brother gifted me a green screen, and we've been geeking out pretty much the whole afternoon. It just feels like movie magic. It feels like movie magic. Mama Jewel says, I'm doing well. Just posted the info for our 9th, oh my goodness, wow, time is going so fast. That is incredible. 9th bonfire on the website. We now have 3 planned for next month, so I am super stoked. As am I. Also, I love the stoked energy for stoking the creative fires that you have been stoking, so I love that. Well, yes, everything's. If you are not familiar with Mama Jewel, I know she's popped on in, you should check them out. They have an excellent Discord, and lots of really cool resources and just a very excellent network for getting makers and crafters together and really just kind of pushing what we're doing here on Twitch while being super supportive and the very lift as you climb. No contest, just compassion vibes. So check out Mama Jewel Spoonie Advocate if you have not already. But yeah, so now we're feeling the movie magic vibes, and then also just it's good to work on stuff that I've been putting off for a while. Big shock there, but it is good to pull a project out of the drawer and just say, you know what? No, it's time. So this I started in, early 21, late 20, and it's good to just get things done, because I thought maybe foolish me, I thought maybe I could get this done while juggling everything else that global crisis threw at me, but instead we're here now, we're in the moment. Mama Jewel says community and collaboration is what Makefire is all about. Yes, and I am loving the materials for this fairy quilt. Thank you. I am too. If you the royal you, didn't recognize these or aren't familiar, all of these illustrations are Cicely Mary Barker, and she's an illustrator from way back, but she did the flower fairies. I'm sure even if you don't know her work, as soon as you look her up, you know her work. And so these were licensed fabrics from the late 90s, so it's kind of fun that they're already vintage in their own right, but then based on vintage illustrations, or coming up on antique illustrations, I should say. But yeah, I love these colors. I've always loved the flower fairies. My mom has always loved the flower fairies, and so just kind of putting these together in a sweet little quilt, and then challenging myself to do it all by hand, mostly just so that I can get the precision that I can get with the English paper piecing. Obviously, you guys know I love my sewing machine. This is not a anti-sewing machine venture in any point, other than the fact that my sewing machine is broken and needs to go into the shop, but I will adult and take care of that at some point. I just gotta save up for the repair. But in the meantime, never one to miss an opportunity, I will do my hand sewing. So You know, if it wasn't fake it to make it, it's make the best of what you got going for you, including big knots. Look at that. And we're just going to make something cute. So I got bit by the English paper piecing bug a couple years ago, which is weird because I felt like that was just last year. And I made that blue, cream, and yellow quilt that I know I drag out and show. So it's in the window right now, so I don't want to tear it down. But I finished a project. I did a whole quilt by hand, and that was the first time I'd ever done a completely hand-quilted quilt in all of my years of piecing and quilting and whatnot. And after that success, of course, my brain, especially the ADHD side of my brain, went, another. And so I started 3 more, as you do. So I finished one. And so this fairy one is the one that's probably the most done in the fact that I know what I'm doing with it. But then I also, because like I said, ADHD brain, started on another one. And this one is my William Morris. So I have this piece done, and I wanted to bring this one out because I can mess around with this one a little more because it's in one more solid piece than the fairy one. But I wanted to show again how the English paper piecing worked. And so you can see that I've hexagons, which I love hexagons. Hexagons are bestigons. And these were all made by wrapping the fabric around the little paper squares, or paper hexagons, and then sewing them together. But then once you take them out, you get just quilt. And so it's really fun. And I think part of the reason why I enjoyed the English paper piecing so much is there's a tactile crunch to the paper part, and then when you pull them all out and it turns back into fabric again, it's really satisfying. Like even just to kind of crunch it and squish it in this stage is delightful. So you can really see, like on the back here, the ones that still have the paper around the edge, because obviously those still need to be bound to something, and then the ones in the middle that are now just delightful hexagons. So I was keeping that out because it's fun to mess around with. But that's kind of the same story on these. So like on this fairy one here that's unfinished, you can see that I've still got paper. But on these ones that are much more finished, all the paper is out. These have been ironed, they've been pressed, and they are just a quilt block. You know, not just a quilt block, but you know what I mean. They are a quilt block. They are finished, and then I can start, you know, sewing them together and making something. Not entirely sure what yet, but something. Mama Jill says, oh cool, I've never done a quilt. I'm hoping to get my sewing machine for my old storage unit by the end of the year. I hope so. I'm going to put big, just like universe energy into that coming all together for you there, Mama Jewel. It's fun. It's funny because I know a lot of us artists work in so many different materials too that it can be really fun to start something new. But I know for me, I can also be like distracting to start something new. So I really hope that when you come into your sewing machine again, that it's just in a very peaceful, excellent, motivating surge of energy and creativity. And I can't wait to see what you do, because you do some really cool stuff with everything else that I hoped, armed with a sewing machine, that you do some more and it just works for you. Because it's fun. I really enjoy sewing, and that's something I've been really wanting to get back into. Because like, I think I find a lot of times that it's really easy for me to drop something, but I don't necessarily get any time back. And I'm sad because it's like, you'd think, oh, if I cut some of the extraneous stuff out of my life, I'll have more time to do more. No, I just have more time to, I don't know, stress myself out. So I'm trying to put back in the things that really matter to me, and really just try and push myself on some of these crafts that I've neglected over the years, like costume sewing, clothing sewing, and quilting. That I had cut from my repertoire for, I don't know, time management reasons or something. But I didn't get anything from cutting them out, so I'm gonna put them back in. Mama Jewel says, yes, I want to make my own clothes. Figure if I can do that, it will help with texture and comfort issues, especially with my fibromyalgia. Absolute big mood there. That's one of the reasons I want to make my own clothes as well. Yes, sensory issues, pain issues, for me, and you know, like just to add and empathize with, for me, I've got my, identity and gender. I don't want to say issues because that's not the right word, but it works. And yeah, taking ownership of the clothes and being able to put seams where they won't, where they won't be a sensory annoyance, but then also will just, they'll fit better, they'll feel better, And then also everyone can be like, hey, nice shirt, and you can be like, I made it. Which honestly just is such a good feeling when people are like, hey, that's cool. And you're like, yay, I made it. It has pockets. So I'm excited for your clothing journey as well there, Mama Jewel. Perfect. All right, so I'm coming up on having 2 pieces joined. So I've just done a ladder stitch down this piece. So they're almost like little butterflies. And I've just stitched down the row. And then I'm going to do that nifty little trick where I pull them nice and tight, get my tension, and just have that beautiful seam where it just works, which, oh, that's so nice. It's nice when things just work out. Which is another reason I think I enjoy making, because I can have things be spiraling out of control, but guess what? In my little corner here, in this little seam, everything is just working out fine. Mama Jill says, I'm loving your outfit today, by the way. I've always loved that style. I appreciate that. I figured I was working with the flower fairies today, and I just wanted to bring in a little bit of my sparkle and just, dress for the occasion. I was playing Stardew Valley yesterday, and I wore my cowboy hat, and honestly, just, yeah. Normally clothing for me is, like, just something I don't enjoy, between the gender dysmorphia and, like, life. I just really don't enjoy clothing, and so just putting it back in a positive spin and just kind of owning it has been really helping. So thank you for the compliment. It means a lot to me. All right, so I'm just going to tuck my thread back through here, and then I'll tie that off. And then we have our little first piece of the day. So I like to very distinctly and succinctly knot between all of my pieces. It is nice when you can kind of chain them all together and just, sew. But I figure if I know that I've knotted really strongly between them, then I don't have to worry about them coming apart. And so sometimes for me, losing a bit of efficiency for that extra security is worth it. So sometimes I'll be efficient, sometimes I won't, but that's life. Okay, so now you can see how it's kind of like a heart, it's kind of like a butterfly, but that lays right into this place. And so I'll start sewing them here in a bit. A lot of this really is just kind of figuring out what way makes the most sense for your hands, for your sewing, for the seams, to kind of lay these together, especially when you've got a really sharp point like right here. That can get a little bit fidgety, so I'm trying to figure out, just mentally here, if it's better to sew this as one piece and then the angle is not as sharp, versus like sewing this to this and then inserting that piece. So there's a little bit of that that goes on with EPP that can be just a little fussy. It's not the end of the world, it can just be fussy. So that's where I like to bring in either pins or like these little clippies. These clippies here, Little Sprout likes to pretend these are fish because they bite and she can fish for them. But I like to just use them to line up my edges here because it's just enough pressure and it doesn't put holes in things, which is nice. Now, obviously, like cotton fabric can handle that, but, it's one less sharp thing to juggle, and it's me, and I don't need extra sharp things to be in my own way. So yeah, now looking at the pieces, I think I'm going to reduce that angle, kind of the geometric angle there, and just sew these 2 pieces together and then insert them right back in. So it's kind of like making your own puzzle, which is fun. So in a completely not sponsored post, just me geeking because I really enjoy their product, I bought this particular pattern, these pre-cut paper pieces, from a website called paperpieces.com. And this was their dogwood block, which was really nice. It was one set, which is, tell me you're on a budget, without telling me you're on a budget. I did one block at a time so that I could reuse the papers. So these have a lot of holes in them, but it's paper. And honestly, and as long as they stay crisp enough to like maintain their geometry, you can use them as many times as you want. So that was nice. It's not as efficient because I can't have multiple blocks like queued up, but it works well enough, So I wanted to make a total of 4 blocks, but I'll have to get the paper pieces out of this before I can start the next one. Now, if like when I'm doing hexagons, we find that just economically and then just workload wise that it's best to buy like a big pack, like especially if you can get a bunch of friends in on this craft. Buy the like 100 pack, split it, and be like, you get 30, I get 30, whatever, math, and then they go a long way. I like to have a lot because some days you'll just feel like sitting there and like prepping the hexagons or the paper pieces because it's kind of fun. It genuinely feels to me like the best kind of arts and crafts craft because I do them with glue stick. So I have a special glue stick, although honestly like an Elmer's glue stick will do just fine. You just want something that won't stain your fabric or that won't get too sticky. So like we're talking like Elmer's glue or a fabric like light glue stick. And then you just like cut your pieces and you wrap them around the paper and it's nice. It just like put on a movie that you can kind of zone out to and prep all of them. And then the next day. Yeah, Quilting Koala says buy the 750 pack, LOL. Is that what we did? I couldn't remember how many there were. I knew there were at least 100, but there were probably like that. And again, that's from paperpieces.com. But it's been fun because they have all sorts. Like it really gave me like STEAM and STEM vibes, like, you know, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, because all of this comes down to being geometry. It is very much like, okay, what angle of triangle or what angle of sides on my diamond do I need so that I can make an endlessly repeating pattern? And I think that's why the hexagons are timelessly popular, because they just work. There's no thinking. They just look pretty, and honestly, you know, obviously it's reminiscent of bees, and they just work. But I liked getting in and being like, okay, if I get a 30-degree miniature triangle, can I then put that within the hexagons? And you can get as complicated as you want. And I think that's why the dogwood block here just makes me so happy, because it's got just enough fiddly little pieces and then big enough pieces that I don't burn out halfway through the block. Karen HN says, I'm so happy to see you here. I've just started an EPP project for the first time. Well, welcome on in. We're doing some EPP, and it's so much fun. It is so much fun. I love the mix of precision and fiddly bits. And it's just good stuff. So yes, welcome on in, Karen, and hope you are having a wonderful Friday. And I hope your project's going well. If you are on Discord, and you can do exclamation point at Discord in the chat, you can share pictures. We'd love to see photos if you're comfortable sharing. But if you're more just here and chatting, that is excellent too. Excellent, excellent. It's fun to have that kind of co-working energy where I love when I'm not streaming, when I'm working on something off camera, I love to just put on a streamer. And it's excellent when you can find somebody that's just like working on the same type of stuff, so. Karen says, I'm embracing the slow sewing thing. You know what? I love that. There is something just very peaceful about it. And you know what? I was talking earlier about how, speaking of slow, these have been sitting in a drawer for about a year. I started a big quilt, finished it. I should probably just go get it here in a second. But I finished a project, got really excited. It was my first like total hand-pieced one. And then of course my brain was like, let's make 3 more. And then I burnt out a little bit and moved on, and then came back. But it's nice to just, I don't know, just be able to put in a little bit of work whenever I can. I've been doing that with a cross stitch as well too, where I just come back to it whenever I feel like I need just a little bit of handwork. You know, especially like when I'm prepping hexagons or something, and I can just put on a movie, rewatch something, you know, put on Star Wars for the 5 millionth time, and just, you know, just sew. And so for those of you who just came in, first off, big welcome to everybody. We're doing the ladder stitch, which is, again, that little series of short parallel little stitches that then have a little rung that goes perpendicular. So as always, I don't bite. If you have any questions about kind of the who, what, when, why, where, how I'm doing things, let me know in chat. But we're just doing our ladder stitch. I find that I get a little bit more control with the ladder stitch versus like a whip stitch. But that could just be because my whip stitch is messy. And every once in a while I gotta untwist my thread, so that's what I'm doing. Quilting Koala says, just don't wait 40 years though, like I did. You know what? Sometimes it's just residency time. Just needs a little bit of maturation like a fine wine. And then yes, other times it is just procrastination. Karen NH says, giving myself permission to just take my time, go for the precision rather than the get it done quick and move on to the next thing aspect. I respect that. I think there's so many different mentalities and ways, and I think in a lot of them, the project kind of shows us what we need. Like I'm a big believer in finish, not perfect, more so because for me, it's hard for me to actually get things done. And so I know that, whether it's just personality or it is my ADHD, I know that I can hyperfixate and never get things done. So I always am in awe of crafters, artists, individuals who can slow down and take the time on the precision. Mad props to that. But I'm also learning to let go. So I think all are very valid. And it is one of those where we think we know ourselves and then we start crafting and it really shows us what we really need. And sometimes for me that is to, not to push myself through, but, just kind of to make sure that I don't just, again, worry about it being so perfect that I never finish it. But I would love to see your beautiful precision there, because that is something that should definitely be celebrated as well. If you can get the precision and get it done, well, then you are just next level. So, Mama Jewel says, some of the greats in history started in their later years. Absolutely. Absolutely. I know it is never too late to just start whatever you want. And I think too, like as we kind of continue to live in a world of ongoing global crises, it's one of those where, these things can be very healing, and certainly, not of course to make light of anything, but more so like when we can take a moment and make in the face of such destruction, I think that is really powerful. So I think, if you were ever looking for a reason to start, there's one right there. So now we have these 3 pieces put together. And I love just pulling that ladder stitch nice and tight and getting that tension to just work. It just feels kind of magic to me, not gonna lie. And honestly, I love that. Even when it's repetitive, there's something kind of magic about it not getting old. Like just being able to be like, hey, look, I did it. I did it like 15 times, but hey, it still feels magic every single time. Why not? Why not be proud of that? But also just to like revel in that feeling, because I don't know, I got a lot going on, and sometimes I need the victory. I need the win. So now we are going to take this large piece, and I'm going to make it where we can kind of see it here. I'm going to be joining our little cranberry boy right here into the center block. So I think I'll start with the center block just so I can keep that nice and aligned. Again, I'm going to use my magnets on this. So I like these pressure clips a lot, but when they can't get in and reach, one of the things I've been using, I'm slightly off screen here, are these sew tiles. And this is a little like magnetic, well, this is just a little steel bar, and then this is a magnet. So like when I need to reach in on my project, let's see, get that lined up, because I'm really trying to keep those corners nice and precise. Then I can put the magnet bar and my little steel plate, and that holds it where because if I was to clip it on this like vertex, then the clips would be in the way, so it helps. Karen says, giving myself permission to just take my time. Oh yes, okay, sorry, my chat just refreshed and I thought that was a new message, but no, yes, give yourself permission to take the time. I love that. So now that my clips aren't in the way on this this here, I'm going to stitch that up real quick. Whoops. Or not. So on my first stitch, I'm sewing double threaded, which if you've been here or you are familiar, is it's a choice. I find that sewing double threaded, so making a long piece of thread, putting my needle halfway, and then taking both of my ends and tying them off so I have a loop, it means I can't ever unthread my needle, which is a plus. It also, I kind of get more of a thickness in my thread. I feel it's a little stronger, but it does tangle a lot. So you have some trade-offs where you're working with just kind of the traditional way. You have a knot at the end, one thread, and then it loops through your needle. You're not going to get as tangled. But I find the trade-off of the tangle danger, I was trying to make that into a portmanteau, but it didn't quite work there, is less annoying than than popping my needle off all the time, and then I feel like I, whether or not it's accurate, get a little bit more strength. So what I like to do first, my first stitch, is go through my fabric and then loop back in through my tied end, and then I like automatically have an anchor, especially when I'm doing the ladder stitch, because that's all about the tension. So that allows me the like strength and peace of mind to know that when I pull this for that tension at the end, that it's really anchored and I'm not going to undo my stitch work, because guess who's undone their stitch work before? So now I'm just doing that again. Let me like bring it up a little higher. When I'm doing that ladder stitch, again, I'm doing the kind of subcutaneous bit, so you can feel the way that the needle goes between the fabric and the paper, which is what I love about English paper piecing. It feels weird and I like that, but you're taking your needle, and when you're looking up at one of these, so you've got your paper and then you've got your fabric, there is the tiniest edge where you can take a needle and get right here, and you're not on the paper and you're not really on the fabric, and that's where you're doing your ladder stitch. So it just kind of, it's a feeling thing. It's hard to describe, but it is a feeling thing. And that's where you're taking your needle. It keeps your stitches straight. It makes that perfect little channel for your thread to go through. And so that's what I'm looking for. It's just kind of grabbing right under the skin there of the fabric, right between, like you're riding your needle along the edge of that paper, just perfectly. And it's just all kind of about that feel. So that's what I'm doing. So now, especially like when I'm working on a piece here where I'm right in the middle of the block, having the magnets pinching at the proper tension means I can kind of smush everything else around and I'm not getting misaligned, which is nice, because anything to help me in my like make it work kind of style. So I like to take a medium amount of stitches. I definitely know there are people that do about 47 stitches to the inch, and then there are some people who do about 18 or less, or yeah, I'm kind of in the middle. I don't count how many stitches per inch I do or anything, just kind of by feel. In that respect, kind of very just fake it to make it, like it's enough stitches, but you want it to be strong enough that when you pull on this, again, the ladder stitch being tension based, that it, survives, and it doesn't ripple either. The more stitches, the less likely it is to kind of rip. If you've ever like gathered fabric, you know that if you take too big of stitches, it makes nice ruffles. Not quite what you're going for here. So you want small enough to make it work, but not so much that you're spending like 12 hours on each part. And Mama Jewel says, I found some fun facts about some creative grates that I would love to share if you don't mind. I love facts. Yes, please. Can we have facts in chat? I love facts. I think I need to make a facts emote for the channel, because we've had some excellent people bring in their like best presentations lately, and I want to celebrate that. Stanley, Excelsior. Stan Lee created his first hit comic, The Fantastic Four, just shy of his 39th birthday in 1961. Wow. It's interesting, because I think sometimes I think, I tend to just kind of imagine Stan Lee as like forever his like older appearance, that's just how Stan Lee always was. So sometimes I think it's weird to think how he might have been at a younger age, and so it is even more kind of not ironic, but just even more just fitting that he, not that 39 is old at all, but that he was just doing it in his adult life. Like, that's just what he was doing. And Mama Jewel says, Vera Wang was a figure skater and journalist before entering the fashion industry at age 40. which, wow, like, just like, let's be successful at everything, which is awesome. Like, way to just do it. Julia Child worked in advertising and media before writing her first cookbook when she was 50, launching her career as a celebrity chef in 1961. Wow. Which, yeah, that's awesome. Like, I know sometimes it can feel scary. Like, even, so I'm 30, and I know that's nothing. But I know sometimes with things like, even like YouTube and Twitch, it can feel like definitely already a younger person's game. Especially on Twitch, you only have to be 13 to have a channel. And so it's like, ah. But you know what? Age is just a number. It doesn't matter. So yeah, do your thing. Do your thing. It doesn't even matter. It's only too late when you are gone from this world. Until then, it is fair game. Golden Koala says, yay, I just finished the Christmas cat latch hook. 21 inches by 27 inches. Started this one at least 20 years ago. Which I'm laughing out of commiseration. I'm laughing out of understanding. Because, yeah, sometimes these things, you start them, especially, you know, we moved a lot. So if they get put in a box and it's like, time travel. These are now a sealed time capsule. So I like the no time like the present vibes, and just get it done. Enjoy these things. Finish what's worth finishing. Honestly, you know, like, it's good to just say, you know what, sure, this took a while, but I got it done. Like, there's something about getting things finished. So Mama Jewel also says, and one of the world's favorite actresses who recently perfected her craft as an actress, comedian, humanitarian advocate, Betty White, was one of the most award-winning comedic actresses in history, but she didn't become an icon until she joined the cast of The Mary Tyler Moore Show in 1973 at age 51. So yeah, like, if it's good enough for Betty White, it's good enough for all of us. So I'm going to really quickly take off my magnets here. I rounded that corner, so I just want to make sure that everything's lining up. So I'm stitching along this part right here. So I've done the center block, and remember, we just joined these, so now we've joined here, and we're working our way up this part. So I just wanted to check it and make sure that my corner looked nice and crisp before we moved on too far, because I'd rather unpick a couple stitches versus all of them. So you really do get into like weird kind of scrunchy taco mode with this a lot, which is why I like the variety of clips and magnets, because sometimes you just kind of got to squish it and work at a weird angle. So do whatever works for you best. I also like the clips because sometimes when you're working on an EPP edge like this, it can start coming unglued, like this one here, because these have been sitting around for a little while. They're starting to come unglued, which is going to be great when I'm taking this off. But for right now, like, oh no, that's going to mess with my tension. So I'm going to grab an extra clip and put it back where I've already sewn, because that helps keep that nice and crisp. Because really, really, really what we get out of English paper piecing is that precision and that crispness. So if I start losing that, it's not really what I'm after here. So, and again, this isn't supposed to be perfect. It's more just, I've got it, I've done the work. I want it to be as flat and nice as I can. So, because ultimately that's what's going to make this block look the best that I can get it. So I think sometimes I find sewing the hexagons the best, because they're only, I think these are what, 3/4 inch hexagons? Yes, they are. For anyone wondering at home, this grid behind me is a 1-inch grid. Helps me keep in scale, but I also find it helps the viewer kind of realize how big or small things are. But you can see my hexies here if I line one up here along the top here, from edge to edge on the vertices here, we've got about 3/4 inch. So these are 3/4 hexies, which means when you're doing surface area, because that's really what this comes down to, is it's only hard because there's so many like vertices to sew. You've got meep, 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 meep. Like it's a lot. So the 3/4 inch hexes just kind of work because if you sew them in a decent pattern, I like to sew them in strips. So I do like, let me bring this back in. I'll do like 2 and 2 and 2 and 2 and then sew them together and do lines and then sew the lines together. When you're doing big pieces like that, I find it's a little easier to sew. Of course, on this block, I've, sewn it together probably the weirdest way I can. But again, I can't be efficient all the time, and most of the times I'm not. Most of the times I am kind of just in make it work mode, especially when I'm kind of getting back on a project that I haven't touched in a while. I have to, recalibrate the internal maps there and remember how it was that I was putting this all together. Because it may have made sense 2 years ago, but does it make sense now? I can't tell you. So I'm jumping back into it, and that's what just getting back in the saddle and everything means. So I can pretty much guarantee that by the time I finished, I'll have come up with a really effective route. Which means, if I immediately then go in and make the 4th block, then great. But if I don't, then I'll have just come up with an effective route, and we'll forget it by next time. But we do our best. We do our best. So I'm almost to the end here, and I'm just going to that sharp point where the little fairy boys block ends. I love this little fairy here. This whole collection in this particular colorway, they're on little cranberries, and this fabric came in at least 3 different colorways at the time. I'm working from like my mom's, like I said, from her stash that's definitely vintage at this point, which is just wild because I remember this as a kid, and so it's really neat to just be able to work with it and do something fun. But I love this colorway. These kind of browns and creams and cranberries. I've got my like cranberry corduroy pants on for the occasion. I know they look a little brown on camera, but I like cranberry. It's a pretty color, it's a pretty flavor. So these little cranberries. Okay, so I'm pulling the tension on this. I like to loop it around kind of the dental floss and just kind of slowly gather that tension. I don't want to break my threads and I don't want to break my fabric, but I want to make sure that I pull enough that I'm getting that really nice, that seam, because I don't want any gaps and I don't want this coming apart later. And I'm still new at EPP, honestly, so like I don't know if I would like totally trust my handwork for like a functional bed quilt, and I think that's partially why I've been making wall hangings, because then if there are some gaps, it's not the end of the world. But we're always learning, we're always progressing. I would like my blocks to feel substantial, and it is interesting because that part that's coming unglued is now like making me scared, but it's already secured, so it's all good. It's all good. Quilting Koala says, I like the pastels the best. Yes, these did come, these Cicely Mary Barker Flower Fairies came in beautiful pastels as well. Most of her work was in more than pastel, well, they're very, very natural tones, but yes, lots of spring blossoms, and a lot of like winter icy blue colorways, but yes, also some of these falls, which I just really like. There we go. Okay, so when we set this back down, you can see now kind of cardinal direction wise we have north, south, east, well, west and now east. But what was fun about laying this out is if you notice that this fairy is actually the same in all 4 blocks, which is just fun. So that's where the fussy cutting comes in, where you lay out your little blocks and then you try and line it up so that it looks the same in each block. It's hard, and I know I've talked about this on the channel before, where it can be a little bit waste of fabric because you're not just going for full-on fabric efficiency, you're going for where the design appears. But, with a piece of fabric that has a decent enough repeat, you're not going to be cutting like in the middle. You're just going to, cut at the first available little fairy boy or whatever your pattern is. But honestly, if I'm going to spend 20 hours hand sewing this and then another 10 quilting it, I want the design to be I'm worried more so about the design versus the fabric efficiency. Like, I've got projects where fabric efficiency would be my goal. This is not one of them. Now it is hard, especially with fabric that like is out of print. You know, call it what you will, dead stock fabric, vintage fabric. It's hard knowing I like really can't get much more of this, but on the other hand, like we bought it to be used, and I'm gonna get what I can get out of it. And so I just sometimes like to line it all back up and just kind of see what I'm working with because it's fun. It's a puzzle. It's sewing with a side of free puzzle, which I really like. Also, lining up these plaids was really fun. I wanted to make sure that the direction of the plaid stayed consistent. So I wasn't as concerned about the placement of the reds. I made sure there was red on all of them, but just kind of getting that like vertical horizontal thing was just a fun challenge. Okay, so I apparently am missing one of these. That's all right. We can work on another part. So you can see here, okay, so like, for example, this is where fabric gets really fun for me and fun for a lot of quilters. On both of these blocks, if you look in the corner here, you have, and remembering again that this is called the dogwood flower, you kind of have petals, petal, petal. This block here is a little triangle, and if you make it the same fabric as your background fabric, it makes this rounded, it kind of makes this piece disappear. On this one, I didn't want to do that, so what I actually did, instead of having this piece be the plaid, one, I didn't want to try and line up the plaid, and two, I wanted to bring in a different fabric. I actually made it out of these little raspberries, so it's this color, and then I did the little like acorns. So I, instead of making it be a rounded shape with the kind of hidden block, I just decided to make it like a split block here. So I get extra fabric in there and it makes it a point. So now I've got the pointed diagonal and the pointed, like this becomes a point instead of a round. So you can really experiment and kind of get different effects by the way you like arrange your background colors on that. And I think that's just really fun because you could give 100 quilters the same geometric quilt block and you're going to get 100 different quilts just because of the way that they use their colors, the way they fussy cut their fabrics, the way that, you know, you can, it's just like art, foreground and background. You can make things recede into the background. You can make them merge. You can make new shapes, especially like, you know, even on a block like this, if this was out of solids, like solid color fabric, like just one color, you know, you could pull different elements out. You could, you know, do black, white, and it would look so much different than, you know, bringing in these neutral tones. You know, you can make it modern, you can make it traditional, and it's fun. But yeah, I wanted to make sure that even though I was using the same pattern for all four of these blocks, that I used it in slightly different ways. So like these two with the rounded effect, I'll probably put on a diagonal, and then I'll probably make this other one with the point so that I have like point, point, rounded, rounded, so that it makes a nice, you know, cohesive, coherent quilt, and one doesn't just stick out like a sore thumb. But that's why I took them one at a time. Also, I don't know if anyone caught this while I was sewing them together, but when we sewed these, each piece here is a different piece. Like you can see that I'm missing one. So this heart shape, this like butterfly piece is two pieces. And so on this quilt block, for example, I got two fairies in each little like petal here. And I really liked that I could do that because you can see the scale here of these fairies. They're little and they're perfect. They were like made for these little kite shapes. But on this fabric, the scale of the print was a lot larger. These fairies were big. So what I did was I taped the two heart pieces together and cut it as one so that I didn't have a seam running down the middle of these. And I was able to get these much larger fairies. So even like with paper piece that's like an existing pattern, you can tape pieces together. You can cut pieces apart. Like I think with quilting, what's always fun is that, you know, you're taking fabric and cutting it apart and then sewing it back together. So you can cut it apart as many times as you want to like cut it apart. And so I just really loved that I could tape these pieces and I still got that nice geometric point. It was a little harder to get this red point in because I didn't have a Y seam, but it worked. And I really like that I could use this fabric because otherwise it just wasn't going to work at that scale. So make it work for you. I love big, like, make it work energy as well. So that's something that I love to experiment with. Is just, yeah, how can I try things? How can I push it a little bit more? Yeah, there we go. And I could have used that same joined piece on these. I didn't really get anything by separating them back out again, except it was easier to put in that diamond in there. So, you live and learn. So I'm going to make some of those corner blocks. I've got that raspberry and the acorn, and I'm just going to slap them together. On these little pieces, it can sometimes be hard to tell exactly where your point is. So I like to, grip it together, and then it's a lot of just feel, which I really like about like fiber arts, especially like embroidering and quilting and sewing is yes. There's absolutely a respect for the precision. But also, like, if you need to fuss it a little bit, it's fabric, and the fibers do move a little bit. So there is a respect to the rigidity, but also just a flexibility in there. So you're going to do your best to line them up, but we got a little bit of flex. We like to say around here, you can hide your secrets in the seam allowance. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to loop around, get that nice sturdy knot, and then go right in for the ladder stitch. Okay. There we go. And when you're doing the ladder stitch, you can do a combination of a couple stitches and then kind of pre-tension it, or you can kind of wait to the end and get that pull. I was stitching up some of Little Sprout's plushies the other day. She had played a little rough, which happens. I mean, that's why I love to be able to sew, because it's just like, hey, one of your buddies ripped, Mama's got it. And it was just kind of magic to stitch along the little tear, and then with the ladder stitch, and then pull that tension and just be like, ha, magic. Magic. And she was very happy that worked out. So I think that's, even if you don't do like hand piecing or hand quilting or hand sewing, for anything else, I think the ladder stitch is just a neat one to have kind of in your pocket for things like, plushie repair. Because you never know when one of your buddies might need a couple stitches. So again, we're just gonna kind of zip this up. And on these little pieces, I find that like my thread gets looped around, and that's a added detriment of working with the double thread, is you do make more loops. But again, I find it's worth it. I feel that with most techniques, learn it one way and then make it work for you. Like, if unless you're specifically putting yourself in the arena to be like judged at, I don't know, a quilt show or something, like just sew the way that makes the most sense to you, make it work for you, and everyone else can deal. Like, I'm not strictly textbook in any way, shape, or form, because I'm just gonna try and make it work. Like, I'm doing my best. I'm not shirking tradition or textbook or anything, but if you gotta sew backwards, or you gotta take more stitches or less stitches, just, if it's functionally the same, congrats. It's good. Good enough is good enough, honestly. So, we challenge ourselves with the parts we need, but also, like, don't let yourself get bogged down by overthinking it. And I know I'm definitely an overthinker, so. Alright, so we're almost to the end. Sometimes these little pieces go so fast. Uh-oh. And then we broke our thread. So that is one other danger, I would say, of working with the double thread, is you're always putting your tension on the same spot on the needle, whereas when you're sewing a single thread, it will move around. If that ever happens, I just bring it back into my needle and then finish up just at least enough to tie a knot, because it definitely happens. You're wearing on one piece of the metal and it breaks. But again, it just makes sure you're try and pull not from the needle eye, which I know is hard because it's kind of like what the needle is for. I try and pull with my pinky instead, kind of like here, and again, kind of dental floss it, I guess is the best metaphor I can make. But there we have it. So we'll open this back up. You can see it's nice and joined, and it just looks nice. So I like to just kind of finger press it open, Just use the warmth of your fingers and just kind of iron it. Again, once we get all the paper out, we'll get a nice steam press in there and get them real flat. But for now, finger pressing works. And then we can lay that in, and it just kind of slots into place. What's nice is you can see these little tails, these little kite tails, these little dog ears here. Don't trim those off. You need them for your seam allowance. But when you slip them right underneath all these other pieces, they just disappear, and it looks really nice. Ta-da! It's like I know what I'm doing. Don't tell anyone. There we go. So even though I pick it up and destroy it every time, it's still nice to just check it. And that way too, before you sew anything down, if you've got pieces like these plaids, where there's a lot of heavy red, you can make sure that they line up the way you want them to. And just, you get to see the whole block. I think that's one of the things too that's nice about this, is you get to preview the block at so many different stages, and it doesn't all just magically pop in at one point. You can really work with it. It's not all going to come down to one seam, one moment. Like, it's been like this in its various state for almost a year now, which is interesting to me, because when you're doing like traditional strip piecing, you might just have like a pile of strips and they'll eventually come together. But with this, you really see the whole block right away, which sometimes I think is good, because you know what it's going to look like. And other times it's like, oh, well, I know what this is going to look like. Can it just come together, please? So there's that. There's a little bit of both. But I like how it just works. And so I am missing two pieces. I'm missing this side and then the other little raspberry, but I still have quite a bit to sew on. But I'm just gonna sit here and take a little drink break. I've got some Thai iced tea with some boba, and we can just chat for a minute. And I know for me, one of the things I'm working on is just listening to my body, making sure I'm resting when I need to, especially my wrists. I've got a lot of wrist problems, and I traditionally just stubborn through them, which is not the best route to take, and I am learning to stop and stretch, because I want to be able to use my wrists for a long time. They're the only wrists I got, so instead of just pushing through and causing more damage, I'm gonna stop and stretch, especially with this little handwork. So if you are working on something, if you're here kind of co-working with me, make sure you take a stretch, drink some water, stay hydrated, my everythings, because I care about you, and I'm going to do the same. I'm also just going to enjoy this tea, because it's good tea. So I hope you all are having a fantastic evening or night. I know it is getting late in some parts, but this has been fun, and I'm excited to continue sewing on these after I take my little tea break. But if you're in chat, I know I've got some lovely lurkers today. If you feel like introducing yourselves, no pressure. I know what it's like to just want to lurk, but it's always a pleasure to have everyone here in the chat. The lurkers, followers, subscribers, of course. You guys are my everythings, and this is how I make things work. If you are new here, I'll do my intro again, because I see some new faces. My name is Catherine. I use she, they pronouns, and I am an artist. I am a single mama. I homeschool my little sprout, and we do our crafts, we do our geeky thing. I stream Thursday through Saturday. Thursday and Friday being makers and crafting art. I'm here in my little studio, which happens to be a reclaimed school bus. So we have a lot of fun kind of out on the ranch just doing our thing. And then Saturdays, I call Catherine's Unapologetic Nerd Hour. Lately, they've been a slightly more alliterative Star Wars Saturday, where I game and we geek a lot. So we kind of do the whole Twitch spectrum here, where we game, we geek, we craft, we make. But you guys have been the most amazing community here. So as always, ! Discord in chat. We'll pull up Nightbot, and they'll show you if you'd like to join us on board the bus, join our Discord, and be part of the fun. That way I can see what you're working on too, because it's great to be here on Twitch. It's great to have you in chat, but sometimes it's really exciting to take a peek behind and get in the Discord and see your pictures as well. And also, if you are a streamer, let me know, because I would love to check out your work as well, or your games, whatever it is you do on Twitch. Twitch is for everyone. So that's my little spiel. But I just wanted to say thank you so much. And if you, like what we're doing here and you'd like to stick around and subscribe, that helps me keep everything going. And you can always use your Amazon Prime Gaming or Twitch Prime Gaming here and subscribe for free. And that helps me out a lot. So thank you so much for all of that. And I think time to jump right back into it. As I realize I can drink and stitch at the same time. But it is good, like I said, to give the wrists a break and make sure that we're staying healthy on that. So without further ado, I'm going to get a new thread because that other one was damaged. And that just happens. I think that's why a lot of people work with about this much thread, just kind of your arm length, so you're not moving too far. I know I like to be stubborn and use more because then I don't have to rethread as often. But again, find what works best for you and your workflow. There we go. So getting a new thread, and again, I am double threading because I don't want to rethread my needle. It's one less thing to have to worry about. And especially too when I'm like now I'm sewing, like right now I'm sewing alone. But a lot of times there's cats and a kid and I don't want to have to lose my needle. So knowing that it's kind of always securely on my thread in my project it's one less thing that my object permanence can just not have to worry about. So there is that. All right. So I'm going to just kind of jump back in. I'm working on those little fiddly bits around the corners. Sometimes I feel like doing big strings, and sometimes I just like to get the little stuff out of the way because they can be fun and they can be frustrating. So if I've got the energy, the mental wherewithal, I'm going to do the fiddly bits so that if I need to not focus as hard, I can have bigger stretches. So again, we're going to sandwich those together. That's our little corner bit. And then I'm going to clip it, and so it helps us just hold things in place, and then we'll get to sewing. Maybe I'll move these so you can see a little better. So you come right in here and stitch. There we go. Again, ladder stitch, whip stitch, kind of whatever you can put here on the back that won't show and just kind of makes its own seam allowance really truly works. But I think once I learned the ladder stitch on EPP, I just couldn't go back. And yes, Golden Claw says the fiddly bits around the coast, which is of course a line from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So good old Douglas Adams goodness. Which then, of course, always makes me want to ask if anyone's read any good books lately. I am continuing to read To Little Sprout, the Little House on the Prairie series. We are on the fourth book. We're on the fourth book chronologically by Laura Ingalls Wilder perspective. We are skipping Farmer Boy, which is the one about her husband. That takes place. You're supposed to read it chronologically and be introduced to him as a child, but we're doing the read where we go back and do a flashback because Little Sprout was like, I don't want to know new characters. I want to keep up with the characters that I've been attached to thus far. And we already experienced a couple time skips between books, and that's just how they're written. There's a time skip between On the Banks of Plum Creek and On the Shores of Silver Lake. So I think the time skip was enough for her. We didn't need additional confusion chronologically by then introducing new characters that we had never heard of. So that's where we are there. Of course, we're doing them with a compassionate and understanding read through, knowing that they are very rosy cheek idealized views, and that they should be taken with a grain of salt. That said, it's just the more you read, the more you're introduced to, the more points of view, and then we can, kind of jump around from there. So, but that's what we're reading these days. So it's been interesting. It's been really fun that Little Sprout's up for chapter books. So, and if you're new here, Little Sprout is my daughter. She is 5.5. She is my my sunshine, my world, my little sprout. And like I said, we homeschool, and it's just been an absolute delight teaching her and getting to experience things through her point of view, and then introduce her to all the crafts and the fun and the nerdery and the cosplay and the quilting and everything that it is that I do, and then kind of how we craft and what we've kind of taken on as hobbies through her interests as well. So it's good fun. It's very, very good fun. Again, we just kind of ladder stitch back and forth. And this is where, like, you can see how far my reach is on this thread. Working with a shorter thread means you are not doing this, but I hate running out of thread in pieces, so I would always rather have a little bit extra, even though it probably is less efficient and more work in the long run. I don't know. You win some, you lose some. I find things mostly are, 6 one way, half a dozen another. But it's a workflow thing. So again, if you are quick at rethreading, or honestly, if you just had like, I don't know, 4 needles with short thread and you could just grab, it would probably be better than one long thread all the time. But I think we all pick a hill on which to perish. So So again, just kind of hand pressing this out so I can see my little block. And you can see that this is just about slightly bigger than an inch square because it's a trapezoid. But, they're not huge pieces. They're not tiny pieces. Just kind of... I'd love to do some miniatures just because I like things that are miniature scale. But, right now I am also trying to get bang for my buck. And this is a lot of work. I want to have something that feels bigger than miniatures. I think that's just where my brain is right now. Obviously, that's what's fun about all of this, is I can work on this, and then I can start other projects that satisfy things in different ways. So it's fun to try things. It's fun to explore, honestly. So that's where I am with it. Plus, I need to finish this, and then I can make a miniature. Actually, after I finish this, after, of course, I finish the blocks, then they have to be sewn into a quilt top or a flimsy, and then that needs to be layered and quilted and then bound, and then it's finished. But after this project, I think I'm going to kind of switch back to clothes sewing. If you were here earlier, and by earlier I mean like at the beginning of the year, I was making Little Sprout some clothes. We did the goose coat, which is almost done. Honestly, it's at the weird handwork stage where it's just got, I don't know, like 200 feet of binding, which I'm like, it's a 5-year-old's coat. How is there this much binding? But I did that myself. By making it quilted, then it inevitably had to be bound. So I made that problem. I made that bed I will lay in it. But it's coming along really nicely. So I'm trying to get my slippers because my feet are cold. But apparently I'm awkward and can't be chill. So I'm just gonna embrace the weird. Sorry, y'all. So that's where we are on that one. But I had made her some like overalls with pockets. She's really into which, okay, totally makes my cottagecore heart super happy. She picked out some fabric that had little toadstools and little trees. So I made her some corduroy overalls with those as well. But I just kind of need to put finishing details on. So I think after these blocks, just kind of looking at the workflow, I'll put the finishing touches on those clothes, and then we can start something new. Of course, if you're familiar with all the streams, I know I get a lot of people that come in for different things, be it the traditional crafts or the cosplay or the nerdery. We've been working on the centaur cosplays as well. So if you're new here, because again I see some new names, Little Sprout and I are making articulated moving centaur costumes for Ren Fair this year, which we're hoping that it's safe and clear enough to go, and if not, we'll just do photo shoots. But we're making centaur costumes. So that's been fun. I have 2 horse butts that hang out here in the studio with me. And we've been working on that. So balancing a lot of projects because I'd say that's who I am, but that's mostly the ADHD, but that's also mostly who I am, and that's what we do. And it's the long-running joke. That's why it's Catherine Everything, because I'm just kind of working on everything all the time. But it's all in good fun. And some of these projects that I have mentioned, I've done here on Twitch. Some will be YouTube only, just because a good friend of mine put it to where Twitch is like my sketchbook. Twitch, y'all get to see the very real side of these things, the very like down to the minute how these things work. I can stop, I can explain, I can be messy, I can, in the words of Miss Frizzle, I can get creative, get messy, make mistakes. Whereas I like to try and push my like cinematography when I'm doing like my longer format projects, and that's where like the YouTube comes in. So things like the centaurs, I did a little bit on Twitch. If you were here for the upholstery of the like horse butts, we did that on Twitch. But some of it, it's just so hard to do live, or I just have really loud power tools going, and I find that's not very fun to listen to. So those will be like longer format stuff, and that'll be on my YouTube. So !socials will get you a link to all of that if you don't already if you don't already follow me there. I'd appreciate it if you moseyed on over and did. But that's just my longer format stuff. If you are interested, DM Chromie says, can I just be the horsebud? I've thought so many times about those like silly cartoon, like, I mean, obviously like it's a thing that people did, but it's very, very iconic in cartoons where someone would be the horse head and someone would be the like horse butt of the costume. And it cracks me up because I think that's low key what Little Sprout was thinking too, where she's like, are we going to be one centaur and we'll like with our powers combined, or we we both going to be centaurs? So that's going to be a fun thing. It's actually kind of like a puppet. The centaur, the horse booty is kind of like a puppet that you wear, and it moves. I'm taking inspiration using part of the pattern by the amazing, the illustrious Ginny D. If you're not familiar with her and you play Dungeons and Dragons, which DM Chromie, I know you play. She is good people, really good people. She's funny. She makes like YouTube videos, just like, player tips, and she loves to dress up. And so she wrote a centaur cosplay book called The Centaur of Attention, which just A+ pun. And I've been following part of her pattern for hours, which is fun because I love to see like geeky ladies that have excellent math skills and pattern writing skills, and it's just fun. It's really just fun to kind of share that knowledge. I mean, obviously, like that's what we're doing here. We're hanging out, we're crafting, we're sharing expertise, and just getting, building a community and sharing that. And I really enjoy that. That's what like Twitch and YouTube have allowed me to do. So this is good stuff. Really, really good stuff. So, oops, let me sew a little closer to the camera there. And we have an ongoing joke on this channel that I pretty much change my setup every single time I stream, and that's not for my not for my ease, but more so that I'm trying things, I'm learning, like in every opportunity that I get to teach and share and just do fun stuff here, I'm also just learning behind the scenes. So sometimes I will accidentally be off camera, and I'm doing my best to learn where my new parameters are. But today, if y'all noticed, we have the green screen. So that was something really fun. My brother surprised me with that. And it was one of those where, like, it felt like movie magic, not gonna lie. Like, I love films. There was something amazing about the cinema, about the theater, about all forms, and it's just something about practical effects and digital effects, and I've always wanted to be involved in film in some capacity. And so just, even though it's, it was like a $20 sheet and some free software, there's still something amazing about just kind of seeing movie magic happen right before your eyes, and like having a home computer that's powerful enough to do these things that used to be like mind-blowing. Just there's an appreciation, there's a geekiness, and then there's also just a like, this is really cool. This is really, really cool. And I love it. And it just makes me really happy because I, like, little Catherine wanted to be a Foley artist when she grew up, which, if you are unfamiliar, a Foley artist makes all of these sounds behind the scenes when they re-record audio. So all the horse clapping and paper bag rustling and just rain dropping. It's cool. It's all sound design. But then Lego came out with the Steven Spielberg Lego director's sets, the Lego Studio sets, and my whole world shifted. I got into stop motion animation. I wanted to be a director. It was good stuff. And that evolved into a degree and lots of years of studies in animation. That's my formal training, which I just love because, one, it was super fun. Oopsie, there we go. It was super fun. It was super cool to do. And then honestly, I think, one, there's no such thing as wasted education. I was very fortunate to be able to go to art school, to be able to go to college. And I may not be doing animation now, but there's things that I learned then that were completely invaluable, and still like influence what I do today. And I think that's why just different forms of making content are so satisfying, because I can still storyboard things out, I can still tell stories, I can still, I may not be animating them anymore, but there's a lot of transferable kind of skills there, and so it's good stuff. But after art school, I went on to, and I had spent definite time growing up being like a camp counselor and like a substitute art teacher, and just like coming in and teaching. I wanted to pursue my master's in education. Then life threw some stuff my way, and that didn't happen because life is weird. And so if you ever have a plan and it doesn't work, I feel you. And after a lot of soul searching and medical stuff and just life being, to put it eloquently, I decided to do the art thing again. And then I became a mom, and I really wanted to find some way to make all of that make sense. So then I became a children's book illustrator, and I self-published a line of children's books, which I illustrated. And it was, again, fun to just kind of take different things and smash them together. And that's really where I feel like Twitch and YouTube are coming again, is just a way for me to like make everything make sense. And that's, spoiler alert, kind of where the name comes from. I like to try everything. I like to do everything I can. I'm not necessarily going to be good at it, but there's something about trying, and something about just experimenting and just keep on keeping on in. That just is fun. It's fun being Catherine everything. And it also is just fun to like let my geeky flag fly and just like live a really true to myself existence and just be here and be the like weird little nerd that I have always wanted to be. And now y'all are cool with it. So long sentimental rant. I don't even know how we started there. Aside, I'm just really grateful for all of y'all. Like I said, you guys are my everythings. I'm Catherine Everything, but you are my everythings. You are able to have this be a community, an amazing community, and make this make sense for me and my little family. So thank you so much. All right, so now I know I've laid this out and taken it apart and laid it out again, but we're going to just kind of start figuring out what needs to be attached where. Like, we got some flappy bits that need to be wrestled down, and it really just kind of starts to come together at this point. Like, this is where then you pick it up and it's bizarre, but you can use the magnets. See, like for this seam, I don't necessarily want to fold this because then I'm going to hurt this piece. So I might lay this out as flat as I can where I actually want it to do and be, and then use my magnets on top of this, at least for part of the time. Get in, get sewing, and then move my thread around. So there's really, I think, again, that's why English paper piecing to me is so enjoyable, is because if I'm bored of sewing one way, chances are I can just attack it from a different direction, and it just feels different in my hands. It, hits differently on the wrists, and I can just try something different. And so, like, if my hands hurt, I can just adjust. And I like that. Also, sometimes too, and again, whether this is an everybody thing or this is an ADHD thing, just changing up the parameters in which I'm sewing, it's like, now it's interesting again. And, when you're in this for, I don't know, tens of hundreds of hours or whatever, like, sometimes you need it to be interesting and different. Sometimes you need it to be, kind of zen and repetitive, and I respect that as well. But sometimes just mixing it up while still doing the same thing is enough to get the brain to be like, yes, good stuff, carry on. So I'm going to sew flat on these ones. So if you've noticed before, I've been kind of joining them, pieces like this, folding them, and then sewing along an edge like this to where I open back up. Now I'm going to be sewing with them flat and sewing this way. So you can do the ladder stitch that way as well. And like I said, that's kind of where the mixing it up and just trying it from a different angle just works out, And honestly, it just kind of flexes the brain muscles because, might be harder this way, but I don't know, feels different, feels good, feels attacking the same problem from a different way. And it just reminds me too, I'm laughing at myself because I was telling a story earlier, just about like different puzzles and different ways to problem solve. And I'm always reminded of this meme where it's 3 bowls of cat food. And I'll bring it up, I'll put it in the Discord. It's like pretty much permanently in my Discord because I reference it. But it's like 3 bowls of cat food, and it's like the game master or the dungeon master, it's like the problem, and then the player's solution should have been 1 cat goes to each food bowl. Should have been very easy, but instead, each cat is like looped over each other and they're all like fighting for the same bowl, and it's just like, guys, it was so easy. But I feel like that's how my brain works, and ultimately all cats got to a food bowl. So was it the wrong answer if we got there in the end? And that's just kind of that kind of chaotic, like ADHD energy that just happens. Hey, Piku Piku, thank you so much for the follow. If you would like to introduce yourself, feel free to do so in chat. And if you prefer to lurk, I totally respect that. But we're happy to have you here. And thank you again so much for that follow. We're working on some English paper piecing tonight. And it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. So now I'm going to take off that magnet because now it's in my way. And we're just going to keep on. I'm just going to move like these dog tails out of the way, dog ears, kite tails, dog tails, whatever you call them. And I'm just going to keep kind of flat stitching along. And I sometimes really like to work with this flat. I don't know. Again, it's just a different way of doing things. And sometimes that's just all it takes for your brain to be like, yeah, that's good. So I'm just making sure that I'm actually like in these little fiddly bits here. I have to move some of this out of the way to make sure my seam actually joins up where I want it. But other than that, it's not hard. It's just fiddly. So rotate around, hold your piece from different angles, just to make sure you're getting it. But, and again, with that ladder stitch, I like to just every once in a while make sure I'm getting the tension. And I am at this point actually struggling a little bit because you can see this paper piece here. Welcome to English paper piecing. It's supposed to be glued down. It's supposed to sit and nestle and have these edges be glued down, but it's been in a drawer for a little while, so it's trying to escape. It wants to be free, and ultimately that's what we're doing. Pull out this piece. This is the piece I've been working on. These ones still have the paper in. They're crisp. They're delightful. You can hear the paper, whereas like in the middle, it's soft and it's fabric. Well, the soft and fabric is great when you're done. The paper is good when you're not done. And so when you have rogue pieces trying to escape, sometimes it's annoying. And you just kind of have to work carefully and quickly around them. You could get up and get a glue stick, but I don't want to. Not to be like, so I'm just going to complain about it, but more teaching moment. Sometimes these things escape. I could use the magnet. I could put a couple stay stitches in there. But also, I'm like 2 stitches away from just it not being a problem anymore, so I'm just gonna put 2 more stitches in and, you know, deal with it. And maybe if more of my pieces were trying to escape, I might get up and glue the glue stick, but it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. Alright. So now that we're past that little part, again, I'm just going to make sure my tension's good without a paper piece, because, you know, it's just coming out. It's just, be free. You do have to be a little bit more careful and mindful of your fabric gathering or bunching. That is the one thing that the paper does protect against a little bit better. So without that, you've got to fuss a little bit more, but it's not the end of the world. It really isn't. So we're just going to do our best. Okay, so I just got to put a couple more stitches in and got to focus for a hot second. Viku says, I feel like I'm looking at magic right now. It looks so good. Well, thank you. I think part of that is the sweet little fairies that we've got on our fabric, but for any of the magic that I'm bringing, thank you, I appreciate that. It is fun to do these little stitches and just make something, kind of conjure something from your hands. But there we go, so that we've worked through that weird little impasse there. And then when we pull our little tension, you can see that it's all joined up. It all works out. And it does feel like magic. And then we'll put all these blocks together and eventually get them sewn together into a quilt top, also called a flimsy, and then we can get that basted up and hand quilted and then bound, and then we'll have a whole little quilt, which I'm not entirely sure yet how big I'm going to make this one. I had been making these all about 24 by 30 some odd inches because I've been making them as curtains for my little bus. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I want to do, because I ended up then just getting some nice rolled canvas and making curtains. And the quilts help with extra insulation. Like, it gets really hot here, and so anything that we can do to keep that heat out and keep the windows really insulated helps. And cold, but I'm not sure. This one might evolve into something. I think that's what's fun too about projects, is sometimes they just take on a life of their own. So. Piku Piku says, despite hand stitching being very painstakingly long, it is kind of therapeutic. Absolutely, I agree. I definitely go through phases where it's really enjoyable, and then others where I'm like, no thank you. So these pieces, all of these little blocks, these 2 are just about done, and I'm working on the 3rd one here. I had started these at the end of 20, early 21, and I was telling everyone earlier that I made a whole quilt, a whole hand-piece, hand-stitched, hand-quilted quilt, and then my brain went, let's do another, and so I started 3 more, and then my brain went, just kidding, we need to do something else. And so they've been sitting in various stages, which is, again, what this is from, and what these are from, and I've got a whole drawer full of loose EPP pieces, but it's nice to just kind of come back to them. I do that. I have kind of a slight rotation of crafts and stuff, and it keeps my brain happy. So we're doing these kind of in between some cosplay stuff, in between some big projects. My sewing machine needs to go in and get serviced, so it's a perfect time to do handwork. The world forced my hand, if you will, but no time like the present. So there we have that piece now attached, and then we'll be putting one of these little poppy blocks. That was the one thing that I wanted to tie in on all of these. So if you notice these 2 blocks here, this one and this one, they all have the poppy blocks the poppies in the corner, and so I wanted to keep that as something cohesive, especially because I was changing up the way that the flower kind of presented in each block. That way they've got something that is the same. I'm just kind of hand ironing one little spot, just using the heat of my fingers and just kind of pressing it flat. Although it's kind of funny because it's cold and my fingers aren't that warm, but I do have a space heater off to the side here, so I can kind of warm them up. Piku Piku says, I totally get it. Transitioning from craft to keep yourself entertained. Absolutely. It's also too where I was telling people where sometimes I'll be working on a craft and I'll get to a weird stage in it where like I have to use big power tools or like really annoying heat guns for like hours, and that's no fun to stream because I can't even talk over them, and it would just be like meh for hours. So like it's nice to do something on screen that's different from what I'm doing, and then I don't get burnt out of loud tools or anything. I can just have something a little bit more chill. But yes, we've been working on the centaur costumes, and they require a lot of time with a heat gun because they're PVC based, and so we're heating up and melting bits, which then that involves PPE, your personal protective equipment. Got to get the masks, the goggles, and it's sometimes it's nice to just need my hands and a needle. So it is fun. Obviously, very very happy and very lucky and fortunate to get to play with all the tools that I can, but sometimes it's nice to just need these guys. So, alright. So for the 50,000th time, I've mixed up all my pieces again, but that's alright. It's part of it. Let's see. I think let's put in one of the poppies. So the poppies, I am purposely making them stick directionally out from the block so that there's no up and down, top and bottom for these. It's just one less thing to have to worry about when I go to put all the blocks together, and it helps. So that way if I decide I want a block facing a different direction, I don't have the fabric going the wrong way. Because obviously I don't have this all the way planned out, which is kind of fun. It just kind of evolves organically into the final project, but that way I'm not like limiting myself on the ways that it can go, so it's kind of fun. Originally I figured about 4 of these blocks would do a nice start to a quilt top, but I don't know, it might evolve to needing 6, maybe even a nice 9 patch. We'll see. It's hard because I think sometimes when I'm in it at the work, I was like, oh no, I can do 9 of these, that's fine. And then other times I'm like, nah, what can I do with 3? Like, what can I get away with the fewest blocks possible? Because they're fun, but sometimes that's a lot. And then I see people making whole king-size bed quilts out of like 3/4 inch hexies, and I'm like, well, you are on a whole different level than I am, and massive kudos to you. So Piku Piku asks, in terms of quilts, do you usually go for hand sewing them or go back and forth between hands and machine? I usually, and I guess I can only say usually just by like sheer volume of votes, I'm normally a machine sewer and machine quilter. Most of the quilts that I've done have been machine done, but I love to do like hand applique and hand like embroidery. So I've been kind of trying to bridge the gap, but as far as like the hand piecing, like this English paper piecing, and then any sort of hand quilting, that's just been in the last couple years, like since the Panini hit. So that's newish to me as far as my quilting tenure. But it mostly just kind of came from wanting to mix things up, and then like in this specific instance, my machine is broken. Like, hopefully not RIP machine, hopefully just get better soon machine. We were working on a quilted coat for my daughter, and it went on the fritz, so we switched to handwork at that point while I wait to save up for that repair. But I like to do both. I really just consider myself very much a polymath in the way that I just like to jump around and have a little bit of this and a little bit of that and just kind of see what works. Because it's fun too. I also have just a very make it work kind of philosophy for crafting. Part of it comes from really using most of my stuff in very multidisciplinary art forms, be it like I do a lot of like fine art fiber sculpture. Then I also do a lot of like cosplay, and I find with like cosplay, you're really just using whatever in the in the best ways, whatever works to achieve things that are often like fantastical and not necessarily like not of this world, but you're going for the best effect. And so being able to mix everything from hand sewing to laser cutters to you know, faking cool textures in acrylic paint has really given an interesting kind of perspective on on making things, because sometimes I might not have like leather working skills, but with things like Warbler and foam and a decent enough paint job, I can, you know, I can fake things. A lot of fake it to make it in the best ways. I think there's something really cool about being able to do that. But it's definitely given me an warped, if not interesting, perspective on just different crafting materials, because you know, I think the cool thing too is, you know, for all of us, we are in a very cool time of like information sharing, and you know, like I started cosplaying in 2006. That like doesn't sound right, but it is. Time is weird. But before that, like I quilted, and quilting sewing is so different from clothing making sewing. But I get where people are like, sewing is sewing, and I get it. It is, but it's different. But then, you know, adding in foam armor making and just all sorts of stuff, prop making on top of that. You know, leathers and latexes and foams and everything. It's interesting because then some of the rules just go out the window. Piku Piku says, "What do you usually cosplay?" So I'm working on right now a set of centaurs, matching mommy daughter centaurs. I have a 5-year-old daughter. Her name's Little Sprout here on the internet. So we're doing like upholstered foam, like a foam and PVC upholstered horse halves with like puppeted legs. But usually, like, I had taken a break from cosplay, admittedly. I've been mostly just focusing on Little Sprout and her, like, just being really extra for her Halloween costumes. So, like, last year, she was Toadette from, like, Nintendo Mario stuff. DM Grimmy says, I was a farmer yesterday. Yes, I was. I was going to say this wasn't even cosplay. That's just my true form. But I like a lot of costumes that involve a lot of structure, which is funny because like I'm not great at getting to finishing details, but finishing details are like my favorite part. So all the like angled double-breasted sailor collar things that were on like a lot of the sailor fukus, I really liked. But these days, when I am getting back into cosplay, and so like I have on the docket Bastila from KOTOR, so Star Wars like leatherwork type costumes, like Jedi robes. But I've always enjoyed the kind of that mix of like historical and fantasy, and I think that's why the things that I do make, yes, Bastila. There, I when I was taking a break from like cosplay, I got into historical fashion, and so I was very much into like like kind of an outlaw core, if you will, historical fashion from like the late 1800s, like 1890s, Wild West type of stuff. So, DM Chromie says you're gonna reawaken every KOTOR kid's crush. Yes, mine included. I love Bastila. I think one, just can we just talk about like how much KOTOR added to the Star Wars universe without completely sidetracking, because you'll get me monologuing. But also just having replayed the game, it's just important to me, and kind of the additions to Star Wars canon, and then just like yellow lightsaber love, it's good stuff. But I also want to do work with the 501st and the Rebel Alliance, and so just having a good guy costume and just being able to like, one of my goals is to do cosplay charity work when things reopen back up. And with KOTOR being re-released, I'm hoping that there's like a whole new generation of like KOTOR and just light side Jedi fans, just to spread some cheer and just, you know, do some good cosplay charity work. I think that's kind of where my goals have evolved. You know, because cosplay is amazing. Honestly, I think cosplay is one of the best things that like ever happened to me. And just as an artist, kind of translating something from 2D to 3D and then working with photographers to translate it back to 2D is such a fun, transformative challenge. Learning what works on screen, on film, in performance is amazing. And then like as a mom, just being able to make Little Sprout like the costumes, like she's on her own little nerd level and like is already falling for all the obscure characters. And I'm like, ah, good, your character's never going to be at Party City, and I'm sad for that, but also I'm ready for this. Like I have trained for this. So that's fun. It's fun to be able to use that. It's fun to be able to like show her what I do, and also like that's where I learned a ton of just like improv and like I think I like to joke that there's like an inner theater kid that still like longs to be let out, and cosplay lets me do that. So cosplay lets me do that. DM Chromie says, "What if you're a Bad Batch clone and Little Sprout is Omega?" That'd be really cute. She doesn't like Star Wars though. Big humbling lesson in you can be a geeky parent and you can have your like ride or die fandoms, and guess what? Your kid probably won't be into the same thing as you are. So she doesn't like Star Wars yet. She doesn't like it yet. And that's okay. That's okay. It's funny. I joke a lot about it. I genuinely have no hard feelings about it, but you know, she likes to give me flack. You know, she'll do things like refuse to call Grogu anything but Baby Yoda because she knows. She knows. But it's, you know, I respect her autonomy. I respect the fact that she's got her own fandoms. She's very, very into anything Nintendo puts out, and that's awesome. She can already play Legend of Zelda better than I can, so like geek parenting already like feeling like achievements unlocked there. But it's just funny. She doesn't like Star Wars. Maybe someday, but not yet. So that's okay. She doesn't like superheroes either, and her dad is sad on his level about that. So neither one of us got the fan, but that's okay, because honestly, like making her a Toadette costume was something that like, that was never a character that like. I mean, Toadette's adorable, but I never was like, ah, yes, I'm gonna have to make that someday. And then Little Sprout is like, yes, you are, and it was so much fun. And honestly, like, I always liked the Mario games. Like, they're fun. They're first off like pillar of geek iconography, but like, you know, they're fun. But like playing Mario Party with somebody who's like into Mario is just next level. And I just, you know, we say around here a lot like geek's gonna geek, and it doesn't even have to be my fandom, but if I can see somebody just like putting their fan passion either as a fan or as a creator alongside or as a fan artist, just any time geeks are geeking about something, yeah, it doesn't have to be my fandom, but all of a sudden I will be excited just because of that like shared passion, you know, like I don't have to get it to get it, you know what I mean? So that's kind of where we are, and I really like it. I really like it. So, but she's going to be a centaur with me, so we are getting her into Dungeons and Dragons. And that would be a hard one. Like, if I had to choose ultimately, like, for life, would I rather have her get into Dungeons and Dragons or Star Wars? That's a hard one. It's a hard one. But D&D, like, yes, and I know DM Chromie's out there like, oh, but there is, like, Star Wars, like, tabletops. I think I'd probably pick D&D, which is wild. Wild to me, the ride or die Star Wars fan. Just because, right? See, there you go, DM Chromie. Just because there is something about just tabletopping in general, and then maybe that's how I get her into Star Wars. Maybe we go roundabout. But we'll find a way. But she's already playing the Tales of Equestria, which is the My Little Pony tabletop RPG, which is excellent. And it's fun. It's really, really fun. And especially because we homeschool. Do you know how much math is in D&D? Like, there we go. Lesson planning. Now we're taking theater as an elective. Tabletop. It works. But yes, a quilting koala says I loved her cat bus costume so much. I'll have to put some pictures in the Discord. Because yeah, when she was super little, little Sprout, we made her. She loves still, but very much loved My Neighbor Totoro. So I made her a cat bus like kigurumi, like the big pajama things. But like it had her arms, and then it had like all six of the other arms. And so like when she like did her cute little toddler run, like all the cat bus arms were there, and it was good stuff. But yes. And there are people that are into D&D and people not into D&D and hobbies, right? BioJ, you just rolled a 19 on a D20, so congrats on that. Use it wisely. I need to roll a motivation check. I'm not. It's just I'm at that weird point where obviously I want to get the work done and I need to get the work done, but you know, you hit those lulls. And then my brain is like, but we could just chat. I'm like, yeah, brain, we can just chat, but also we could pretend that we're going to do some work. I think my motivation is completely reliant on the temperature, and when it gets cold, it plummets. Like, absolute just plummets. Like, tell me... I was going to say, tell me you're getting old without telling me you're getting old, but I don't know, maybe I'm just cold. I'll put this back together, and then we'll see where we are. It's also been like 2 hours, which I'm not gonna look down on. That's some good work, especially with handwork like this. You know, like obviously y'all know me. I can stream like KOTOR for like 8 hours straight, and then just be like, whoopsies, that happened. But with more delicate handwork like this, especially because I am trying to be careful with my wrists, I do have to watch my time, only in the fact that I'm just trying to take care of my body. So if anyone else is out there, like chronic illness sufferers, injuries, I see you. I totally see you. It's hard. It is really, really hard. You've only got one body, and sometimes, man, it is not fair. It's like, I need these to do my stuff, but nope, you only get one. So I'm just making sure that I'm staying healthy and we can always just chat. But I'm also just happy to geek out. This green screen thing's been working out really well. And like I said, this whole Twitch thing has just been an amazing learning experience. And I've been doing this since the end of October. So like pretty much just like November. And I've been able to learn so much just by doing and by learning and by having your guys' input and just building this community. And so like every time we make progress on or off screen, like it is such a moment, and I'm really, really grateful to have y'all with me here, and then just be able to, hey, I will hydrate. Quilting Koala redeemed hydrate with her bus tokens. So thank you for that. And stretch. Alright, well, let me not spill that everywhere, and you can see the poofy sleeves. It's fun fairy day. There's something about poofy sleeves that just make everything better. And I love this shirt, so now I can stretch. But yeah, it's just fun. I'm just trying to be comfortable in my own skin and just, dress like a cowboy sometimes, dress like a fairy sometimes, dress like a Jedi sometimes, and just have fun with it. So I think that's kind of where, like, getting back to, like, what cosplay does, too, is it doesn't have to be a special occasion. It can just be every day. And I want to make my own clothes again, and it just kind of reclaim a lot of things and just, be comfortable and then make cool stuff. Like, those are just kind of goals moving forward, so... DM Chromie says, dress up and watch A Knight's Tale. Oh, that'd be fun. Dress up movie night would be excellent. Excellent choice of movie there, too. We were talking about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy a little earlier, and that one would be fun, because you could just wear a bathrobe, and as long as you knew where your towel was, you're good. You can go on a spacefaring adventure. Movies are fun. Movies are really fun. And then talking with D&D too, I had just been watching Legend of Vox Machina, which, if you're unfamiliar, is Critical Role, who is a tabletop RPGing group that plays D&D. It's their adventure, but then animated out. So, like, imagine having a D&D group so cool that you get together, everyone watches it, and then it was so cool that it got turned into a cartoon, which just goals, but also mad respect. Like that, oh, again, geek's gonna geek. That's just good stuff. So I've just been like looking at all the costumes and everything there too, and it's like, I'm glad I'm doing these centaur costumes with Little Sprout, because I've definitely got that Ren Fair D&D bug, and I just want to dress up as cool things and do cool things. So I figure this year's kind of cosplay goes between Bastila and the centaurs, and we'll see where it leads from there. Will at least get me like my fantasy and my sci-fi kind of clicking back in. So it is fun. I'm also going to drink my tea before it gets too weird. I've got some Thai tea with boba here. That's just good stuff. So now that I've had my water, I can have my treat. Oh, it's so good. It's so sweet though. I was sharing one with my mom, and I think I got all the sugar syrup. And I'm not complaining. I just should finish this before it gets to be too late, or I'll be wired all night. Then I can just, I don't know, read until 2 in the morning, like a responsible adult. But we'll see. I think, even though we've got a really good energy going, I think I may call it for the night, just because I do want to protect my wrists. And I will be doing a long stream tomorrow. So for everyone that's new here, I stream Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Thursday and Friday we do makers and crafting or art, or just kind of something more in this genre. But Saturday is Catherine's Unapologetic Nerd Hour, which lately has been the more alliterative Star Wars Saturday. And yes, DM Chromie's got it. Tomorrow is KOTOR 2. So tomorrow will be a much longer stream. We sit back and nerd about just about everything. But very specifically on Saturdays, we do Star Wars. So, as always, you're welcome to join our Discord, ! Discord will get you there. And that'll get you links to all of my other socials as well, and then my schedule. And so there you can check out everything. And we share pictures, and that way if you have crafts and stuff that you've been working on, or cool games that you've been playing, or excellent memes, you're welcome to share them as well. And that's where we can share things like, oh, I was just on a podcast the other week. So if you're not in the Discord and you enjoy podcasts, my friends Will and the Roscoe brothers had me on their Conversations About ... podcast, and we talked the Book of Boba Fett. Also the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness trailer. So lots of geeky stuff if that is up your alley. DM Chromie says, there's something I wanted to show you actually. Well, I know you are in the Discord, so hopefully it can be posted there, and I'd love to see it. And you can always message me too. That's the super fun thing about all of this, is even when I'm not online, like, I love to just reach out and just hang out in the corner of the internet with y'all. And this is a school bus. I know it's, especially with the green screen, it's impossible to tell, which there's a degree of irony there that but we do like to say that the bus's doors are always open and you're welcome on board the bus anytime. And I truly mean that. Excellent, DM Chromie says posted. I will check that as soon as I get off stream. But it's just something really fun about being able to share and build a community and just, hang out. So I really appreciate y'all hanging out. I know this was a very, very chill stream, but honestly, I really like that. And it's fun to just set aside time and make something, share a little bit, learn a little bit, make some new friends, see some great faces, and I truly mean it. You guys are my everythings. So thank you for being here. I'm going to check and see if there's anyone to raid, just because it is a decent time. Sometimes when I'm going really late, there is not anybody else online tonight. Piku Piku says, I'm glad to meet you today. Have a good day, you too. Thank you so much again for that follow and for being here. Let's see if there's anybody to raid. See if there's any friends online. Not seeing anybody, which is odd. I'm glad I wasn't betting on that. So if anyone has anyone that has similar energy that they know is online, always I'm happy to take raid recommendations. Yes, look at that. DM Chromie says there's actually someone else I watch that matches your energy. If you want a recommendation, I would love a recommendation. You're just like reading my mind tonight. So thank you. Absolutely reading my mind tonight. All right, Moon Princess 247. All right, let us give them a raid. So as always, if you can stay and raid, let's go give them some excellent Catherine Everything energy. And if you have to raid and run, I get that. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay warm, stay safe, wherever the universe takes you. So we're going to raid Moon Princess 247. They are playing Final Fantasy, which is excellent. And so let's go give them some love. And I will see all of y'all tomorrow for Star Wars Saturday. We'll be here 6 p.m. Pacific time. And get ready to get your geek on. So stay safe, stay warm. I will see you all tomorrow. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.